Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today to discuss hazing and explore ways we can prevent this within our organization and on college campuses. My name is Desiree Williams, and I am the Digital Education Coordinator here at AKPsi. I will be producing this webcast. Now, before we get started with our program, let's review the web-based features available to you, our viewers. This webinar will be advanced remotely, but at the bottom of your screen, there are multiple application widgets you guys can use throughout the program. If you are accessing the webinar via a mobile device, you may need to scroll down or over on your screen to access these widgets. Every window on your screen is completely customizable, so feel free to resize and move them to fit your needs. In the resource list widget on the right, the slideshow and other additional materials are available for you as well. The group chat widget allows you to interact with other attendees and the presenters throughout the presentation. When posting, it will share your first name and last initial, but please share your chapter and university too. If you have any technical difficulties, please click on the Help widget with the question mark icon. And lastly, if you have a question throughout the program, please launch the Q&A widget and type in your questions. All of those will be discussed at the end of the program in the order they are received. Today, our presenters will utilize their experiences within student organizations and their time on college campuses to explain hazing and its dangers and offer ways for you to join the fight for hazing prevention. For our program today, Lee Kramer and Nick Schrager will be presenting. Lee is the Director of Student Life for the Wharton Undergraduate Division at the University of Pennsylvania, where he has been working since 2004. He also oversees all global opportunities for Wharton undergraduates. In his student life role, he oversees all co-curricular life for Wharton undergraduates, including new student orientation, family weekend, and graduation. Originally from Philadelphia, Lee received his bachelor's degree from Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, and his MBA from Drexel University. Outside of work and travel, Lee enjoys movies, theater, photography, and performing comedy improv. Nick is from Long Island, New York, and graduated from the University of Buffalo in 2016 with a degree in business administration and a minor in history. He joined Alpha Kappa Psi in 2013 during his freshman year. Nick served as recruitment director, risk management director, and historian, among other roles. He also served the executive board as VP of membership and VP of alumni relations. Nick received the Distinguished Service Award Bronze during his senior year. Since graduation, Nick has served as a member of the fraternity ritual team, where he helped install 3 chapters, and in various volunteer roles within the Eastern Great Lakes Regional Management Team. Professionally, Nick has been involved with PepsiCo since 2016 and currently serves as the Sales District Manager in Binghamton, New York. He is also pursuing his MBA at the College of William and Mary.
Thank you, Desiree, for that introduction. My name is Nick. Before we start to talk about how to prevent hazing, let's lay some groundwork. What is hazing? Why does it need to be stopped? Hazing is something almost everyone here has heard of, but may not fully understand. Recognition is the first step to prevention. People often think of hazing as the physical distress, like running, chugging alcohol, or getting beat with paddles. People focus on the physical force and physical harm, which in turn minimizes the potential emotional harm of hazing. They also tend to diminish its dangers, and instead, they see it as a way to build brotherhood through bonding during stressful situations, or as a way to build character. However, hazing is any activity that humiliates, degrades, abuses, or endangers a person who is seeking membership in a group, even if the person is willing to participate in the activity. It is mental, physical, and emotional distress, whether caused intentionally or unintentionally. HazingPrevention.org, one of the leading organizations for hazing prevention education, defines hazing as any action taken or any situation created intentionally that causes embarrassment, harassment, or ridicule, and risks emotional and/or physical harm to members of a group or a team, whether new or not, regardless of the person's willingness to participate.
Now we have a few statistics to share with you. This data comes from organizations dedicated to hazing awareness and prevention. 47% of students are hazed before they enter college. 80% of NCAA athletes say they experienced some form of hazing during their college careers. More than half of students in college and university clubs, sports teams, and organizations have experienced hazing. 25% of coaches or organization advisors were aware of the group's hazing behaviors. 25% of the behaviors occurred on campus. 25% of hazing experiences had alumni present. 9 out of 10 students experiencing hazing behaviors do not consider themselves to have been hazed. Those numbers should be rather alarming. So what does all that mean? What does hazing look like? For example, hazing can be making prospective members fight for a bid because only one of them can become a pledge. Forcing a person to drink gallons of water until they have water poisoning. Asking students to stay up all night to work on a project due the next morning, causing sleep deprivation. Asking pledges to come to a member's apartment and then asking them to run an errand for you. Now, let's see what happened in a real-life hazing situation. Jack Farama. Jack was a vibrant young freshman student at the University of Texas at Austin in 2005. At a required fraternity initiation ceremony, Jack and other pledges were required to drink all the alcohol provided to them by the active members. Jack became incapacitated. When the event ended, Jack was left unattended and unfortunately passed away. The Faramars have compiled proceeds from their court case settlements to create an endowment in honor of their son to promote alcohol awareness and to educate other students about the dangers of hazing and binge drinking.
The examples Lee just shared are severe cases. A situation doesn't always have to end up in injury or death to be considered hazing. Alpha Kappa Psi as an organization is not immune to hazing issues. In the 2017-2018 fiscal year, Alpha Kappa Psi had 11 risk management cases related to hazing. The majority of cases Alpha Kappa Psi must investigate involve berating pledges, mental degradation, sleep deprivation caused by an unreasonable requirement or requirements, and requiring tasks of public buffoonery from pledges or brothers. Not all of these may blatantly scream hazing to you, but the lasting effects can be very dangerous. Let's play a game to see what our viewers think. On the screen, a scenario will appear, and we want you to tell us if you think it is considered hazing. After the responses, we'll share the right answer. Holding a scavenger hunt for your chapter. Do you think this scenario is considered hazing? Please answer yes or no on the screen. As many of you know, this one doesn't have an exact yes or no answer. Chapters can do scavenger hunts, if approved. If they are not approved by the Judiciary Committee, it would be considered hazing automatically. While these activities can be fun to plan and participate in, scavenger hunts often require public acts of buffoonery and sometimes theft and unsafe conditions. There is a lot of unknown risk in sending groups of college students out to complete a list of tasks. It is important to submit your chapter's scavenger hunt plan first to ensure you have the right risk reduction practices in place.
Okay, let's try another one. Hosting chapter meetings that last until 1 a.m. Do you think this scenario is considered hazing? Please answer yes or no on the screen. This one has a clear answer, yes. Holding chapter meetings that do not get out until 1 a.m. is considered hazing. You don't know what a pledge or brother has to do the next morning. They may have to go to work, take an early exam, or any other number of activities. If they are unable to get enough sleep due to a fraternity event, it could lead to sleep deprivation, which can affect grades as well as mental and physical health. While Alpha Kappa Psi requires events to conclude by 11 p.m. to allow pledges and brothers adequate sleep, be sure to check with your university as they may have stricter guidelines for organizations that you must follow.
We've heard the stories of what can happen. Let's dig down into what hazing can really do. The most obvious is physical: injuries, alcohol poisoning, coma, and even death. Hazing can also interrupt a person's mental, emotional, and psychological health. Like mentioned in the example, sleep deprivation from late meetings and activities can cause impaired judgment, ruin grades, and cause undue stress on relationships. Psychological trauma can occur. It is not often reported because of shame or self-blame. Hazing can lead to depression, suicidal thoughts or tendencies, withdrawal from activities, and shame. This harm can persist into adulthood and can undermine the well-being of a person. People with a history of trauma may be even more at risk for negative psychological reactions to hazing. We don't know everything about our students' life and background. The hazing activity may trigger reactions to previous victimization and cause post-traumatic stress disorder. Hazing can only increase the stress level of a student, which can then contribute to the situations mentioned already. Someone who has been the victim of hazing is also more likely to haze others in the future. Those that haze may experience significant feelings of guilt and shame that can affect them for some time. Bystanders may experience guilt about their failure to intervene, as well as symptoms of trauma after witnessing the suffering of the victim. Those who participate in hazing may experience depression, decrease in school performance, and ostracism from their peers. Perpetrators and bystanders could face legal and financial consequences, leading to stress for family and friends. Those that haze can face legal actions up to and including jail time and fines, institutional discipline, meaning suspension or expulsion, and membership and organizational sanctions. In Alpha Kappa Psi, a chapter found responsible for hazing is typically on probation for a minimum of 18 to 24 months, and they could be barred from hosting a pledge class. The chapter will pay increased insurance rates of at least 100%, sometimes as high as 200%.
So, after all those consequences, why would anyone think this is okay? Nobody wants to get injured, pay fines, or otherwise deal with all the dangers Nick just mentioned. And I'm sure when you heard the scenarios, a lot of them clearly seemed outrageous. What benefit does it serve? Why would someone want to do that to another, or consent to having it done to themselves? Students often believe hazing builds respect, gives them status with the group, and provides a sense of pride, accomplishment, and tradition. Students sometimes minimize hazing by saying it was no big deal. They say it makes them a better man, better person, better member. How often have we heard, it was tradition, so I didn't mind? What about this one? It happened to them, so it's okay to do it to the next pledge class. Some say it builds brotherhood and character. As long as no one dies, it's okay, and of course, nothing bad could ever happen to me. Students don't realize it is hazing until much later. Sometimes a student fears the consequences if they don't partake in an activity. Peer pressure can come from the members or fellow pledges. So that was a lot of information. So let's unpack those excuses a little bit more and dig deeper. Hazing activities do not factor in the innate risk of the situation, so the situation can get out of hand very quickly. There are better, safer, and more constructive ways to build character, brotherhood, and sisterhood. 44 states have anti-hazing laws. Each one of our U.S. chapters operate in a state that has laws regarding hazing. You can be found guilty of hazing in a criminal court, and that will follow you for the rest of your life. It may be funny for an hour, but the consequences of hazing can last a lifetime. When an incident occurs, it reflects on the chapter, the entire fraternity, and the university, as well as the community, which can cause deeper and more severe issues. We have community standards, not just for our chapters, but also at universities. And we have codes of conduct, policies that everyone's staff, students must follow. As professional business leaders, we want you to understand how your actions now connect to corporate sectors. Hazing does not occur in the workplace. Businesses do not haze their new employees during their new hire orientation, but instead are welcoming and provide support during the transition period. If there isn't this level of pressure, harassment, and demand for respect in the workplace, why should it be present anywhere else?
Even if you take every precaution, there are times when hazing may still occur. Once you recognize a situation, do you know how to stop it? Notice it, interpret it as a problem, and take action. If you see something, say something. Ask the person what the purpose of the activity is. One of Stephen Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people is to, quote, seek to understand before you are understood. Understand the activity first, and then discuss better ways to achieve its purpose. Notify the university, your advisors, anyone that has the authority in order to stop the activity. This doesn't mean that students do not have authority, but having a title can sometimes grab attention a bit quicker. If what you see could be endangering lives, call the police. You don't want to be an accomplice or witness or suspect in a manslaughter investigation just because you didn't say something when you had the chance. Yes, that escalated quickly.
Ideally, we do not want you to experience the situations just mentioned. So let's talk about preventive measures you and your organization can start utilizing. Make a serious commitment to educate your campus community about hazing. Ensure there is an anti-hazing policy in place and that it's communicated to students, coaches, faculty, advisors, and administrators. Broaden the range of who you target to provide more in-depth hazing prevention training. Work with students to develop alternative actions and traditions. Every member should be aware of what hazing looks like. Have your risk management compliance committee review each program the chapter hosts. Remember, hazing can be inadvertent, so having a committee review the event beforehand can eliminate potential areas of risk. Plan all events thoroughly. Consider events from every single angle. This is where the compliance committee comes in handy. Some things to think about. What time does the event begin and end? Who will be at the event? Members, pledges, alumni, non-members? How do event logistics have to change depending on who attends the events? Will there be alcohol at the event? If so, how is it being distributed? Who is checking IDs? Who are the designated sober members? Will there be food and non-alcoholic beverages? What is the transportation situation? Now, let's narrow down those options even more to target your chapter.
For Alpha Kappa Psi, utilize your compliance committees. They should know what to look for when reviewing events to effectively reduce risks of hazing. If you need help educating your members or enhancing your risk reduction operations, talk to your chapter advisor and regional volunteers. Volunteers are always happy to help with education and prevention. As a regional volunteer myself, it gives me great pride when working with a chapter and its leaders in implementing risk management policies that reduce risk and successfully fulfill the expectations of the chapters. In addition, your university and campus professionals are sometimes closer and may have additional resources to assist in education and prevention. If something does happen and the incident is Alpha Kappa Psi related, be sure to first contact your university and the police if necessary. Then reach out to inform the fraternity. You can report the incident to us in a few ways. You can report an incident on the AKPsi website. Under the About tab, click Judiciary Committee. You can email Liz at akpsi.org or jcleadership@akpsi.org. And you can call the Heritage Center at 317-872-1553.
Before we wrap up, let's recap a few of the key points from today's conversation. Hazing is not always physical. It can be mental, and you may not always visually see the effects. Excuses are just that, excuses. Dig down to the root of the event. If it's not beneficial to an individual's growth and development, should you really be doing it? If you see something, say something. Don't let something escalate further than it already has. Step in or get someone else to step in if you don't feel comfortable doing so.
Great. Thank you, Lee and Nick, for offering so many great examples and resources for our viewers. And now before we transition into the Q&A portion, I want to highlight some of the key skills our viewers were exposed to today. By reviewing your chapter operations and instituting new practices to prevent hazing, members will gain experience with analytical and critical thinking and decision-making. By talking to your chapters and on your campuses, members will gain confidence, relationship building, and oral communication skills. And at this point, we're going to transition to questions. As stated earlier, you can launch the Q&A widget from the menu dock to submit those questions. If we don't get to your question now, we will respond via email, and this feature will remain open even in on-demand viewing. So our first question, my chapter hazes, but I don't want us to get us in trouble. What should I do? Lee or Nick, feel free to answer. Whoever wants to go first.
I'll take this. This is Lee. I would definitely talk to your chapter advisor, talk to university administrators. Honesty is always the best policy, and I would, definitely report it. Students' health could be in danger or in jeopardy, and you have to think, broader for the safety of others and the community. So I would definitely recommend that it be reported.
Yeah, absolutely. And the regional management team and all the volunteers and the Heritage Center staff, we're all here to work with the chapters. We're not here on a witch hunt. If you guys have an issue, if you have a concern that you have, absolutely bring it to us, and we will work with you guys to ensure that what the issue is, who the problems, what the problems are, and try and come up with a solution to it. Like Lee said, honesty is always the best policy, and it's much easier to get ahead of something when the early stages and try and prevent it before it becomes a bigger issue than if you let it go, leave it alone, and then it escalates into something that we really can't, that we are unable to deal with. If it escalates to a point that we can't take action. So I always recommend students getting ahead of it early as possible. And even if you're not comfortable, if you want to remain anonymous and do it through a phone call where we don't really necessarily know your identity, but you just let us know what's happening, and we can go and speak to the chapter leadership and see what actually is going on. But absolutely always report it, and it's always better to be safe than sorry, because the consequences of not reporting it can be much, much more severe.
All right, and we'll move on to our next question. Is it okay if our pledges or brothers want us to haze them?
I would say absolutely no. No, that's not okay. And even if somebody wants to be hazed, you obviously should never do that. I don't know why somebody would want to be hazed, or if they want to build brotherhood. My recommendation, if somebody wants to be hazed, it's likely because they want to build brotherhood, and they want to build character and unity amongst the pledge class and the brotherhood. And there are much, much better and more productive and safer ways of doing that. So I would sit down with those individuals and find out really why is it that they want to be hazed. But of course, no, you should never haze, even if everybody is willing and able. If one person is not, or if the university or chapter or regional management team finds out, then there obviously will have to be some investigations and consequences to it. Just the answer is always no to hazing. And if people really do want to get hazed, I would recommend reaching out, speaking to them, having your volunteers speak to them, having the university speak to them, and see what the root cause of that is, and try and come up with better alternative solutions.
All right, and our third question. Our chapter doesn't haze, but I know of chapters at other schools or other organizations on our campus that do haze. What can I do?
I can take this. This is Lee. I would definitely, again, talk to your chapter advisor, talk to an academic advisor or a student life staff member, and please let them know. It's important that, again, students act as a community in the students' best interest, and to make sure that administrators, faculty, staff members know about what is going on with organizations, and it's important that everyone takes ownership and is accountable for each other, and making sure that everyone is safe and can be in a community and thrive. So it's vital that if students are aware of hazing and other organizations, or friends confide in them that they're being hazed in their respective fraternities, sororities, business fraternities, organizations, that they seek an administrator or, again, staff member, faculty member for counsel and advice and next steps.
All right, and moving on. Aside from pledging, where else does hazing usually occur, or where else should we be looking?
I would say another very common place is parties, even if they're not involving the pledges or recruiting, which they shouldn't anyway, but even if they don't involve them, anytime where there's alcohol involved, that usually leads to some issues where there can be hazing. And anytime there's a power dynamic, whether that be in rituals, obviously pledging, there's a power dynamic between brothers and pledges, but anytime there's a power dynamic present, it can certainly lead to hazing. I've seen examples where brothers felt uncomfortable that their executive board was doing things outside of the realm that they should be operating, because they were perceived to have power over the rest of the chapter. So anytime there's really a power dynamic or there's alcohol present, that's certainly where places you should be looking. And if you're not sure if your chapter is specific, if your chapter is specifically doing something that may border on hazing, it's always better to, again, as we've stated, ask. Ask your regional management team, ask your chapter advisor, ask your university, ask somebody you're close and comfortable with to figure out exactly what you guys are doing and how it can be corrected to prevent those behaviors. But I would say anything with alcohol and any power dynamic is usually the places we look, and the places you can look for potential hazing violations.
All right, and we have one more question for now. So viewers, if you have any other questions coming up, feel free to submit those in the widget. So can non-officers get in trouble for hazing?
Yes, they can. It really depends on what the exact situation is, but yes, obviously officers are responsible for the operations of the chapter. However, if there is something happening that they're unaware of, or if there is one or two non-officer student members who are committing violations, they absolutely can be held responsible. Really, any guilty party can be held responsible for their actions. So don't think if you're a student member and you're not an officer in your chapter and you are committing hazing violations that you're in the clear, because if there is an investigation and you are found to be guilty of committing any sorts of violations, you obviously will be held responsible. So yes, non-officers can absolutely be held responsible.
All right, so Nick and Lee, are there any last-minute thoughts or something from your own experiences that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, don't be afraid to speak up. If you're uncomfortable about a certain situation that's happening, talk to the other brothers, talk to the other officers, chapter advisor, university officials. We don't want students to take on that burden, and it's important that students are proactive. So please, lean on your classmates, lean on administrators and faculty and your respective nationals offices for support and assistance.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with what Lee just stated about, say something. If you see something, say something, speak up. Don't ever be afraid or nervous to speak up. And adding to that, just anytime you think your chapter is doing something that may border on hazing or may be in violation of some of our risk management policies, ask yourself, why is our chapter doing this? What is the reason why this event is occurring? A lot of times I've seen chapters that, we do this because it's our chapter's tradition, or we do this because it's a way, what we've always done in the past. Well, a lot of times the why of these things started to originally get lost over time, and as time moves on, they become more and more, more and more violations pile up, and the why of the original intent of the actual event or program gets lost over time. So always ask yourself why, and don't ever have the mentality of we do this just because we've always done it. It's, as you move into business and as you move into corporate world, we're always looking to change and evolve and better ourselves and better our operations. So never always ask why, and never just, be stuck in the mindset of doing things because we've always done them, because a lot of times that can lead to issues. And again, if you ever have any questions or concerns, reach out to your students, your volunteers, your peers, and your university. We're all here to help you guys and make sure that you are complying with all policies and procedures.
Well, thank you so much, Lee and Nick, for sharing your insights and expertise into this topic. If there are any other follow-up questions or conversations about the program, please contact education@akpsi.org. And thank you for joining us.